Hi, this is Sabrina Gibson. I'm a partner with Imagine Wow, and we get to interview some of the coolest experts on the face of the planet. And today I've got Larry Wolf, who's a seasoned CEO and seasoned CIO, and also has been the head of corporate strategy. He is basically the guy that people call when they need their business turned around, if they're in stagnant or negative growth. He's the guy they bring in, and in record time, he's able to turn the company around to produce a profitable result. He specializes in strategy, planning, facilitation, as well as working with mid-sized to large companies to help them accelerate their growth and really achieve their strategic goals. So Larry, it's so great to have you here.
It's great to be here with you, Sabrina. Thanks for having me.
Well, how did you earn the right to be the expert as the guy who turns companies around and the guy who hits all the strategic plans effortlessly?
I don't know if effortlessly is the right word, but well, I've been doing this for a long time. Over the past 20 years, I've continuously learned and refined the techniques that we use, and in the process, we've helped numerous companies achieve growth in a very accountable and measurable way.
That's great. So what would you say the top 3 problems are that you solve?
That's an interesting question because when we talk about problems, we can really talk about symptoms and root causes. I can tell you the symptoms that we tend to see that people consider to be problems are usually slow to negative growth, inability to execute what was described in the strategy, and difficulty managing a company's business metrics. But when we look under the hood and really examine, we find out that there's some common root causes for these problems, and those usually boil down to how the strategy itself is actually defined, what specifically is being measured, and the concept of alignment, meaning all employees are generally not rowing the boat in the same direction because they don't even understand the business strategy. Did you know that 95% of employees in most large companies don't even know what the strategy is? And 2/3 of middle managers have compensation plans that are not even tied to the business strategy. It's no wonder that so many companies struggle to meet their goals.
You know, I love that you even say that. I mean, I worked in corporate America for a long time, and I can't say that I really truly understood what my role was as it related to the executive strategy. I knew what my specific task was for the time being, but you're right. I mean, I can see why 95% of I didn't realize it was so high. 95% of all employees have no idea what the strategic goals are. Is it because there's a loss of communication from top down?
Communication is really what it's all about. Whether it's strategic planning or project management, all of these things come down to communication. And that's one of the things that we really emphasize in development and management of strategic plans.
And is that the #1 way that you're solving stagnant or negative growth, is by creating effective communication?
Yeah, it's really a combination of some very well-established, well-known strategic planning techniques and project management techniques, coupled with some absolutely proprietary facilitation techniques that really drive that communication and really link senior management and staff-level employees and everybody in between. And once the communication is effective, it's like a head coach explaining the game plan to the team. If you don't explain the game plan, everybody's going to try to do what they think is best, but they're not going to be aligned and there's going to be gaps.
That's interesting. So when you're working, can you give me an example of a time that you went into a company where they were really struggling and you were able to get the whole boat rowing in the same direction, I think is what you say?
Yeah, getting everybody rowing the boat in the same direction. Well, a classic example that I'd like to use is a company that I worked for where I was in charge of corporate strategy, and the CEO came to me and said, this was a for-profit education firm, and the CEO said, we need to really increase our student enrollments, and we used our techniques, And we started at the senior management level. I was a senior vice president, and my peers and I got together and we looked at our challenges, what we need to achieve. And in a lot of companies, we see senior managers not just describing what needs to be achieved, but also trying to explain how, and that's not a smart thing to do. And we got the leadership to establish 12 key objectives, which is a lot, but 12 what? What do we need to achieve in the next year? And then I took a cross-section of employees from all over the company, all levels of the organization, all locations, and we took about 100 people into an auditorium for 3 days. And in those 3 days, they looked at each of the key objectives that leadership set out, and the employees described exactly how to accomplish these things. And it was amazing because they came up with concepts that in a million years we would never have thought of. And it's because they're there doing the job every day. Nobody knows that job better than the person doing it. And when you empower those employees and really harness their knowledge and their passion, it's amazing what they can achieve. And by the time we were done, we had a fully documented strategic plan. We took the CEO on a road show to meet with every employee in the company, location by location, to explain what that plan was. And within a year, they increased their student enrollment by 23%.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, what an incredible gift you gave back, not only to the CEO, but the company. And, you know, I think a lot of times we hear about how the employees actually have all the answers to the questions, but no one's actually asking them the questions. So it's interesting to hear how you were able to actually tap into that knowledge base and then put it into a plan that everyone could get on board with.
Absolutely, and we as the senior executives of the company learned a lot from the employees during those few days. And you know, there was structured project management behind executing all these plans during the course of the year. But the insights that these employees had and the opportunities that they asked for were amazing, and the results spoke for themselves.
How rewarding that must have been for you. Well, you've given so much, I mean, really deep, knowledgeable information. What's one tip that you would recommend to a company that, especially a CEO, maybe that's struggling with making sure that their strategic goals are actually implemented and met throughout the year?
The one word that every CEO should know is alignment. Get your entire company aligned with your vision and your strategy. And if you do that, you're on the right track to make things happen.
And if they, you know, it sounds really easy when you say it. You know, are you finding that CEOs are a little bit lost on how to actually make that happen?
Well, a lot are. I mean, there's everybody's a little different. There's CEOs that are very marketing oriented, CEOs that are very operational oriented. There's CEOs that really understand virtually every aspect of the business, but as smart as they are about their business, they've not necessarily been trained or experienced in how to develop and effectively communicate a strategy. And I'm not talking about the 6-inch binder that sits on the shelf for years and collects dust. I'm talking about a few pages of diagrams and action plans that really explains what's important and helps you keep focus. And with our techniques, we show people not just how to develop the strategy, but also how to communicate it, how to get, you know, as an example, the strategy by definition is the CEO's performance objectives. But the CEO isn't executing all of this. There's people reporting to the CEO that each own a piece of that strategy. Each one has their individual piece. Well, everybody in that person's organization should also share in that ownership. And so we take the overall strategy, and that becomes the CEO's performance objectives for the year. We cascade them to the next level of management and then cascade through each of them until every employee knows exactly what they're doing to support the overall strategy. And the test that we use, and this has caught a lot of attention in social media when I posted this on one of the strategy boards, My instructions to the CEO is that you should be able to walk up to any employee in the organization and ask, what are you doing today to support our strategy? And that person should be able to answer you very decisively and very crisply, because they've been communicated and they've been communicated with, and they've been part of that process, and everybody should understand their role.
I love that. What a great simple test. I hope every CEO listening to this takes a sampling of their employees and just goes and asks them.
I'll ask the crowd to please hold their applause until after the entire interview is done.
The dogs agreed. The dogs are like seconding that.
They're very excited about the strategy work that we did. And how can you blame them? I mean, it is exciting.
And what kind of dogs do you have, Larry?
Thank you, kids. We appreciate the support. That's Heidi, my 10-year-old German Shepherd, and Ben, the 5-year-old Weimaraner.
I love it. I love that.
Brilliant strategists on their own.
That's awesome. Well, as you know, Larry, I love to ask this question of every amazing expert that we get to talk with, and that is, and there's no right or wrong answer here, but how would you define social media?
That's a great question. I used to be the person that thought that social media meant Facebook, but here's what I've learned, particularly talking with you for several months now. If you break it down, media refers to the multitude of channels through which people share thoughts, or through which we communicate thoughts and ideas. Social refers to interactivity or conversation among people. So putting them together, social media really refers to the conversation that takes place among people across a multitude of communication channels.
Well, I like it. I mean, that's a very good description, and I mean, I think it really adequately reflects exactly what's happening. I mean, we're seeing lots of multiple conversation at all levels of an organization communicating. And how are you using social media in your business right now?
Well, that's a great question, because I used to think that it meant having a Facebook profile and a LinkedIn page. But what I've learned, particularly over these past few months, is that I really needed to enhance my website with a blog and setting up numerous social profiles across the different social networks. In addition to LinkedIn and Facebook, I've added Google+, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, and now I'm in the process of adding literally dozens more. Why? Because I can now automatically syndicate content across all of these social channels to achieve two really key objectives. First, I can engage thousands of people in the conversation. Social media. I'm putting out thoughts and ideas, and now I have access to thousands, perhaps millions of people that I can engage in the conversation around those thoughts and ideas related to this business. Second, we know that Google loves original content, and all of this content that I'm posting out there, syndicating out across these channels, is pointing back to my website, so I can achieve, obviously, the high ranking on the Google search, and much more, effectively and cost-effectively than simple, common search engine optimization methods. So the idea is really to leverage social media to maintain an active dialogue that can drive traffic to my site, position me as the industry expert, and drive up sales.
Very good. And you being, I know you've been a CIO of a billion-dollar company before, and a CEO of multiple startups that you were able to take successfully into selling them, and really, helping people achieve their dreams and reach all the strategic goals. So would you say that social media is really designed for the young people, or what kind of age group are you finding, and what kind of professionals are you finding online?
That's such a good question. Social media has largely been associated with younger folks who are just more inclined to engage in the tools and engage in the conversation. But what we find out is that it's really for everyone, regardless of age, regardless of position in an organization. If you really want to keep your finger on the pulse of your industry and on the pulse of your company, what are people saying about you today across all these social channels, you have to use these tools. And if you don't, you're going to be in for some nasty surprises that are going to be very difficult to recover from. But here's the thing. It's not that difficult. It doesn't have to be intimidating. You know, I'm one of those 50-something-year-olds that, you know, Facebook was for keeping in touch with the family. That's not the case. It's rather easy once you're set up to keep track of what's happening in your industry, what's happening in your company, and be able to react quickly to opportunities and respond quickly to things that aren't so great that go on.
I love that. You know, it's like what Apple did. Apple was able to actually eliminate their entire customer service department as a result of really honing in on their brand evangelists. And, you know, who better to ask a question about a Mac or an Apple product than an Apple user, and that's what they were able to do. So, you know, I love your point. I mean, there's just so many things that you can do with social media at all levels of the organization, not just the young people, you know, or the executives' kids. It's now all the executives. I mean, I think Tony Hsieh from Zappos proved just how powerful you can elevate a brand and how fast you can elevate a brand by participating in the conversation. You know, here he is, he sold his billion-dollar company. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. You can simultaneously drive down costs, drive up revenue, which equates to higher profits.
And who wouldn't want that?
Exactly. Exactly.
So what's the #1 recommendation you would give to maybe a company that's either looking to start or accelerate their social media efforts online?
Again, a great question. I see this almost every day now, and I'm not sure why. I think there's just more and more awareness. What we're finding is that there are countless so-called social media experts out there, most of whom specialize in, at most, one aspect of social media. Here's a search engine optimization expert. Here's a Facebook expert. Here's a LinkedIn expert. Here's a blogging expert. What you really need is an organization, more so than an individual, because it's going to be hard to find it with an individual, but you need an organization, an agency that can really offer full service strategy, design, and support for your social media. And the results will be staggering. If you're single dimensional, you're going to get narrow results. If you can cover the wide breadth of social media opportunities, that's when very cost effectively you can drive huge returns.
Well, and one of the things I wanted to thank you for, I mean, you've been an amazing mentor for me as well, is really, you know, understanding, getting that organization to get really clear about their strategic goals and then layering on social media, because I think a lot of people are trying to figure out who they are or what they stand for as a result of just, we call it show up and throw up. When you get into social media, like, hey, let's just try it on and go for it, whereas instead being strategic about it, really understanding what the goals of the company are, and then going into social media. What has been your experience around that?
Well, that comes back to what we were talking about before. The single most important word in strategy is alignment. And if your marketing plan and your social media plan isn't tightly aligned in a measurable way, alignment means measured. And if you're not aligned with the overall business strategy, you're probably going to be having several one-off efforts, and we see this in a lot of companies. They've got individual one-off efforts, and the overall marketing process and plan is not aligned with the overall business strategy. But if we start with the business strategy and we lay out 4, 5, 6 key objectives for the business, and then start looking across the organization, whether it's marketing, finance, technology, operations, sales, you look across the business and get all of those functions aligned on how they're going to achieve those objectives. Now, when you look at social media, when you look at your overall marketing plan, you can have a comprehensive plan that's really glued together. It's not a bunch of one-off individual efforts. We're going to do this Facebook thing, we're going to do this Google thing, we're going to do this email campaign, but rather you get an integrated approach, which again becomes much more cost effective and drives much higher results and measured by the same things that we're measuring the overall business strategy by.
I love that. I mean, and that's really where we're, I think you're right, where a lot of companies are saying, well, what is my ROI on social media? And until you really understand what the objective is, then you can't really measure anything, and if you're actually achieving that. So I love that.
We've seen an amazing phenomenon in the last probably 10 years, maybe a little longer, where there's sales who generates revenue, and there's everybody else who consumes that revenue in the form of costs. And back when I was a corporate chief information officer and chief technology officer, I was there when we started really having the conversation about business alignment and accountability. And the best way to maintain alignment with your business, especially in something as esoteric as technology, is to measure and to be able to prove the value that you're providing through measures that are tied to the strategy. Well, we did that for several years, and we've turned around a lot of organizations using those measurement techniques. Well, then we saw companies going to, for instance, the legal department. Hey, all you do is consume money and you don't generate any revenue for us. Why don't you, as the legal department, find ways to generate revenue? And we see a lot of companies doing strategic patent litigation, trying to find ways to generate revenue, enough revenue to cover the legal department's costs. And there's a lot of examples of that besides patent litigation. Well, marketing has been amongst the last to be approached for that level of accountability and ROI. We always assume that we can't really measure marketing. If sales does well, marketing must have done a good job. If sales doesn't do well, it was probably us guys in IT messing up the systems. But now, over the last few years, and we read this in McKinsey and other major reports, that marketing is to be held accountable more and more for their results. And so using our processes, we can really, again, get marketing aligned with the overall business strategy and apply the same measures in marketing that we've applied to the overall company and to other groups. And in the end, the chief marketing officer becomes the hero because all of a sudden it's not talking about the results, it's demonstrating accountable, measurable results. And at first, most folks are fearful of that change. I've never been held under this microscope before. But as soon as they see the process work, I've not seen anybody who didn't embrace it.
I love it. Yes, that's great. So I have to ask you this question because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be asking this question. And that is, how do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace?
We really have a combination of, it's really a couple things. Our unique combination of the long-standing strategy management techniques combined with the proprietary techniques that enables us to rapidly assess an organization's health and quickly facilitate the development, communication, and execution of the business strategy in a very measurable way. Additionally, we're a boutique agency that specializes in strategy management. We don't have layers of partners like the big consulting firms that we have to upcharge for. We're not incentivized to drag out our engagements. We want to get in, help you, and move on. And if we deliver amazing results and leave you well equipped to sustain those results, then we think that's the best way to get referrals and repeat business. And we can sleep at night knowing that we've really helped an organization. And it's funny, when you help a business, you're not just helping this entity with a P&L on a piece of paper, you're helping people. You're helping the employees, you're helping the customers, you're helping the shareholders. It really has a large effect. And I can tell you that when I first took a corporate executive job, it was a large company, and I didn't really want to do it. And then I realized that we had 5,000 employees that were struggling, and I knew how to help them. And the satisfaction of knowing that not only did I make life easier every day for 5,000 employees, but I also helped our customers and ultimately significantly helped the profitability of the business. So when you ask what differentiates Wolf Strategy Partners, it's really the proprietary methodologies and the fact that we're a boutique specialist agency.
I love that, Larry. And I think about those 5,000 employees. It wasn't just them, but it was their families, and how many people were affected just by that. I mean, just there's so many companies these days, unfortunately, being downsized, and there is no job security anymore. It's really gone. But with people like you and agencies like yourself, then I can see how you can actually bring that level of safety, and not only safety, but that level of satisfaction. I mean, how many people have been in a job and they keep asking for more money when we know that's not going to satisfy them? It's more about making a difference. And in your process, it's like what I consistently see you do is bring that level of feeling like you're actually making a contribution to a company, and as a byproduct, and you actually get to make a contribution to their family, which has got to be incredibly rewarding from all levels.
It really is. I mean, we know that people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. And if you look at the top 10 reasons why people stay or leave a company, money usually comes out number 8, 9, or 10. And amongst the top reasons that somebody stays with a company or chooses to leave a company is understanding their role in the big picture. Again, it comes back to that alignment thing. If I'm the CEO and I can walk up to any person in that business and ask, what are you doing today to support our overall strategy? And that person can answer me, I know that we're trying to increase customer retention by 14% this year, and I'm on that customer service team that's doing these follow-ups and handling problems, etc. That person understands their role. They feel part of the big picture, and they're going to stay there for a long time. And it's amazing, back to the earlier part of that discussion about helping the employees. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people that are working 60, 80 hours a week. They're there when we come in the morning, they're there when we go home at night. It seems like they sleep there, they're there on weekends. And when somebody like that suddenly gets aligned with the overall business and they get the focus, instead of trying to do everything, strategy is about choice. There's countless things we can do in any organization to affect improvement, but the reality is that we have limited time, limited money, and limited people. And so strategy is really about making those tough choices. And when you get somebody focused on what really matters, and they can get away from a lot of the other things that prevented them from doing what's really important, and now they're working 40 hours a week. And they're spending time with their family. And I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody come up to me and thank me for the work that we did, because now I'm a human being again. I'm a mother again. I'm a father again. And I'm not missing my child growing up. It's absolutely amazing, and it's the best feeling you could possibly have when you're part of making that happen.
Incredible. You're incredible, Larry. Well, I'm so grateful. I get to learn from you all the time, and I know that there's so many companies that could just really benefit from tapping into the amazing process you take the companies through. And I just want to tell you that I certainly appreciate you, and I'm so grateful that you share this time and your expertise and your tips. And I know that a lot of companies and CEOs are probably wanting you on their team, so what would be the best way for them to connect with you?
Sure. Thank you, Sabrina. I appreciate that, and the feeling is absolutely mutual. I would ask people to please visit us online at www.wolfstrategy.com, or call me directly. My number is 623-229-1286, and I'd be happy to come in for a free evaluation of your strategic planning methodologies and take a look at how you're executing your plans. And let's see how we can help.
I love it. It's just like you to be so generous. I mean, 30 minutes with you can move mountains. So I really I think that's an awesome amazing way to connect people. Well, I've definitely learned some more things here today, and again, I really appreciate that. I hope we get to have you come back and share more about all these amazing families that you're helping through your process.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this is Sabrina Gibson, and as you can tell, we get to interview the coolest people on the face of the planet. And if you enjoyed Larry and learning more about how he's helping organizations align and getting the employees feeling like they're really contributing to the company, come back. We've got great experts like Larry Wolf, and we'd love to have you come back and watch some more interviews.